we are going to study about the formulations of injections. We are going to study different formulations that are there. The first thing that we are going to study is about the SVP and LVP. So SVP stands for small volume parenterals and LVP stands for large volume parenterals. As the name suggests, a small volume. So the quantity that is present in small volume parentals is less. The quantity right from 1 ml to 100 ml comes under a small volume parental as per USP. Small volume parentals and large volume parentals both are sterile, both are pyrogen free, and if you take SVP, it is packed in volumes up to 1 to 100 ml, whereas large volume parentals, they are also sterile, they are also pyrogen free, but they are packed in the volume more than 100 ml up to usually 1 liter, okay, 1000 ml. So that is the difference between the volume of the SVP and LVP. If you consider the dose, then SVP usually is consist of unit dose. Okay, so it is single dose and it may be packed in it has to be packed in ampoules. Okay, whereas if you again if you take SVP, they can be in the form of single dose or they can be in the form of multiple dose. And if they are in the form of multiple dose, then they are packed in the glass vials, which is stoppered with the help of the rubber, and then further it is enclosed, further it is packed with aluminium. Okay, further it is enclosed by aluminium. Now whereas if you consider large volume parentals are to be taken in one go. You don't have a multiple dose inside it. SVP can have multiple dose as well as single dose, whereas large volume parentals, they have only single dose. That is, all the contents have to be taken in one go. Okay. If you talk about the administration, if you want to compare about the administration, SVP are basically administered only through IV routes. Okay, because by other routes it may cause a little bit of irritation, local irritation. Whereas if you take LVP can be administered to IV route also, and they are administered through other routes also, depending upon the composition. This is about the administration part. Moving ahead with the formulation part of it, what all can be packed in SVP? You can pack a suspension, you can pack emulsion, you can pack freeze-dried products, okay, for reconstitution. Biological and diagnostic agents can be packed into it. Allergenic extracts can be packed. You can pack radiopharmaceuticals, dental products, liposomes, lipids. All these products are packed in small volume parentals. If you consider LVP, then your saline solutions, dextrose solution, Ringer solution, peritoneal dialysis fluid, irrigation fluids, diagnostic agents, and blood connecting units, along with anticoagulants. These are the different products that can be packed inside your SVP and LVP. These are the examples of SVP and LVP. If you talk about the container, as I told you earlier, SVP can be packed in vials or it can be packed in ampoules. If you take the containers for LVP are packed in large containers. Usually it may be a glass bottle, it may be a plastic bottle, it may be a glass bag, or it may be a plastic. Okay, usually of 1 liter, 500 to 1 ml, 1 liter capacity. Okay, so that is about the difference between the SVP and LVP. Now both of them are basically in the solution form, right? And if you see the injectables, most of the injectables that are there, they are basically in the solution form only. Where the vehicles it is used is usually water, right? This vehicle can be used alone. Water as a vehicle can be used alone, but can be used along with a co-solvent also. Most of the things we have already studied earlier, right? Co-solvents such as glycols can be used. Co-solvents such as alcohols can be used, right? If you consider glycols, then polyethylene glycols, or you can say propylene glycols, this can be used. If you take alcohol as a co-solvent, then ethanol is the most preferred co-solvent in alcohols, right? So as I told you earlier, most of the injectables, they are in the solution form. They are when you're preparing a solution form, you can use water as a vehicle, or you can use water as a vehicle along with the co-solvent, and we have given the examples of co-solvent also. Apart from water as a vehicle, you can use also non-aqueous solvents as your vehicle. Just for example, glycerin, right? Now, whenever you are preparing the solutions, these solutions are usually filtered through the membrane filter in order to achieve the sterility. Okay, so before the product is packed, it is being sterilized. After packing, okay, and if you are not using any antimicrobial agent, then before packing it is sterilized with the help of filtration, okay, and after packing it is been sterilized with the help of terminal sterilization. But this terminal sterilization can be carried out only and only if your drug can withstand heat. If your drug cannot withstand heat, then what you can use is antimicrobial agents. When you are doing terminal sterilization, then there is no need of antimicrobial agents to be added inside it. Okay, but if you're not doing terminal sterilization, because your drug is prone to your drug is heat liable, in such case you are going to go for use of antimicrobial agents. Now, whenever you are doing terminal sterilization, the usual preferred method is autoclaving, right? Now, also many a times an antimicrobial agent is added to SVP that cannot be terminally sterilized. So, if you are using terminal sterilization, then there is no need of adding antimicrobial agent. If you are not doing terminal sterilization, then you have to use a antimicrobial agent. And the usual method for terminal sterilization is autoclaving. Okay, this is the usual method that is used for sterilization. And terminal sterilization cannot be carried out if the drug is heat liable or heat sensitive. Okay, yeah. After solution, let us go to the next thing, that is the suspensions. Now, how should the suspension be? You very well know that the suspension should be easily redispersible. It should be easily resuspended. And second quality or second characteristic that the suspension should have it in case of parenterals, it should pass through an 18 to 21 gauge needle. Okay, so it should be able to go inside the needle, okay, and then it should be able to come outside the needle. So the particle size should be such that your suspension should be able to pass 18 to 21 gauge needle, okay, and throughout its shelf life. Because many a times as the aging happens, there are the chances that the particle size they grow. Hence, up till the shelf life, your suspension should be such that it should pass through 18 to 21 gauge needle. Okay. Now, in order to achieve this property, what you have to do is you have to carefully maintain 3-4 things. You have to carefully maintain your particle size distribution. You have to carefully maintain your zeta potential. You have to maintain the rheological properties, and also you have to maintain the wettability. This all you have already studied when you have studied your suspension, right? So these all parameters are very important. That is particle size distribution, the particle size itself, the particle size distribution, zeta potential, rheological properties, and wettabilities. These properties are very important when you are preparing a. Now the next thing is about the formulation. So what does the formulation of your parenteral suspension consist of? The parenteral suspension consists of an active ingredient which is suspended in an aqueous vehicle. Along with them, you have an antimicrobial preservative, you have a surfactant, you have a suspending agent, you have a buffer, and you have a salt inside it. A salt may or may not be present in order to adjust the isotonicity, okay, depending upon the product. So these are the different ingredients that are present inside the suspension. Now, suspensions have the instability problem, isn't it? You very well know that the suspensions are unstable in nature. In such cases where the suspensions are non-stable in nature, then what you can go is you can convert your product into dry powder for reconstitution, right? Whereby this dry powder for reconstitution, if you add sterile water for injection inside it, then it can be converted into a suspension, okay, and then that suspension can be given to the patient. That is if there is instability problem inside the suspension, okay. Now some of the examples of parenteral suspension are penicillin G, procaine injectables, okay, procaine injectable suspension, USP, and testosterone injection suspension. Okay? These are some of the examples of your suspension. Moving ahead, let us go to the next category of formulation, that is the sterile powders. Okay, now sterile powders, or they are also called as dry powder for reconstitution, because powders cannot be given directly inside through injectables. So we have to convert these powders first into the suspensions, or they might be solutions. You have to convert it into them, and when you convert into a suspension or a solution, then and then only you can give this formulation to your patient through injectables. Now, these dry powders for reconstitution can be produced by freeze drying, that is lyophilization method. It can be prepared by sterile crystallization, or it can be also prepared by spray drying. Let us go to the first method of lyophilization. What happens in lyophilization? How is the process that is carried out? You take the particles, you take the drug, okay, and you dissolve the drug inside the solution. So what you get is the solution form of it. Now this solution form is aseptically filled inside the container. Okay, so it is filled inside the container. So this is filtered. The solution that is prepared is first filtered, and then this filtered solution, okay, which is free of microorganism, is now filled inside the container. So they are packed inside the container now, right? After packing it inside the container in the solution form, what you do is freezing. So here what you get over here, after freezing the solution, you get the frozen solution. So this is the frozen solution that has been obtained inside the container. Then what you carry out is, after this step, you carry out the sublimation. You remove the water. This water or this vehicle is removed with the help of sublimation. Okay. So what you do is, you skip the solution step from the ice state. Okay, from ice, okay, from the frozen material. What you do is, you directly convert it into the gaseous state. From the solid state, you convert it into the gaseous state. So the middle solution step is being, what you call it, is avoided. Are you getting me? Okay. So what you do is, this frozen solution is directly subjected to sublimation, whereby the water that is present inside it is getting removed. And once the water that gets removed from this, the final product that you get is nothing but the dry powders. Okay. So these are the dry powders which are being obtained inside the container. And now these containers are used for reconstitution. Okay. Have you got it? So this is how the lyophilization of the or freeze drying is being carried out. Going to the next process, that is sterile crystallization. In sterile crystallization, now this is not the sterile way of crystallization, but this is the photo which I got, which will be helpful for this image will be helpful for you to understand the crystallization process. If this crystallization process is carried out in sterile environment, then that process will be known as sterile crystallization. So sterile crystallization is nothing but crystallization, okay, carried out in a sterile environment. So how do you carry out the crystallization? You take the ingredients, you take a solvent. Inside this solvent, what you go to do is, you solubilize all your ingredients. Then what you carry out is filtration. You get the filtrate, and then what you do is, this filtrate is further converted into what? Into the crystals. These different methods can be used, seeding method, etc. can be used in order to carry out this crystallization. So here also what you do is, you dissolve your solids into a solution. Okay, you convert into a solution, and this solution, okay, is further what you call that, evaporated. In order, the solution is being removed, the solvent is being removed, and what you get is the final crystals, right? The next process that you carry out is spray drying. Okay, in spray drying, what you do is, you prepare a solution. Okay, so this is the solution that has been prepared, which contains your active ingredient, right? And there might be excipients also that may be present. And then this solution is sprayed with the help of the pump. Okay, and you have the gas. inside a chamber, inside a drying chamber, which is already heated. So the temperature of this drying chamber is high, and this solution is introduced inside it in the form of fine droplets. Okay, so these are the droplets in the form of which they have been. So it is introduced in the form of the droplets, right? After introducing it in the form of droplet, as this chamber is heated, okay, this solvent it gets evaporated. Okay, this solvent it gets evaporated into it, and as the solvent is evaporated, this solvent is removed from here. It gets removed from here, right? This is the solvent that is getting removed from here, and finally what you get is the particles. These are the particles that you get, dried particles, and these dried particles are collected in this chamber. Over here in this chamber you collect the dried particles, right? So what you do is you basically prepare a solution of the drug. This solution of the drug is atomized, and this is sprayed inside. That's why it's spray drying. So you spray it inside a chamber. This chamber is drying chamber, which is already been heated. The atomized particles, they lose their water. This water gets exhausted. Okay, it is removed, and after the water is removed, what you get is the fine particles. Okay, and these fine particles are packed inside your vials, which can be further reconstituted and giving it to the patient. Okay, this is actually the lab model that has been available. Okay, this lab model you can see in our pharmaceutics research lab also. Anytime you happen to go in the college, do see this equipment. It is present now in now it is present in the pilot plant. Okay, you can see this equipment in the pilot plant, right? So this is where the final product has been collected. This is your solution, which is pumped inside the chamber. So this is the chamber where it has been pumped inside, and then the exhaust is removed from here. Through this pipe the exhaust is getting removed, right? And here is where you get the final product. Understood? So these are the three methods by which you can prepare dry powders. Moving ahead with lyophilization, let us see the advantages of lyophilization of free dryings over other methods. Other methods means the crystallization methods and also the spray drying method. Now, if you see crystallization method, if you are seeing the spray drying method, what is involved is heat, isn't it? If you see in lyophilization method, water is being removed, okay, but it is removed at a low temperature. So for heat sensitive drugs, okay, lyophilization is a very good method, right? Next is where the product that are obtained from lyophilization are having a very high specific surface area, and as it is having a high specific surface area or high surface area for that matter, that's why the reconstitution is also very rapid as compared to your sterile crystallization or as compared to your spray drying. With the sterile crystallization, with spray drying also, okay, the reconstitution is fast, okay, it is good, but with lyophilization method, it is more better. Okay, now it allows the drugs to be filled inside the vials in the form of solution, right? So you have this ampoules, you know that filling of solution is very, you have these vials, and filling of solution inside the vials is very easier than filling the solids that we have already studied when we are studying the fillings, right? So now how is the lyophilized material filled? The lyophilized material is basically, what you do is basically you fill the ampoules. If you have seen the earlier slides, you basically fill the ampoules with solution first, and these the not ampoules, vials. You fill the vials with the solution first, right? You prepare a solution and you fill the vials, you filter it, you carry out filtration, and that filtered material is filled inside the vial in the form of solution, and then the process of lyophilization, sublimation is being carried out. So what you do is inside the vial you fill it in the form of solution, and filling of solution is very easier as compared to the filling of powder, isn't it? which is more challenging than filling of solution. So it has the added advantage that you are filling the material as solution and not as solids. Okay. Lyophilization has some problems. Okay, so the main problem that it has is, that some of the products, they get damaged during freeze drying, that is during lyophilization. So what are the products that get damaged during freeze drying? They are proteins, liposomal system, and vaccines. They usually get damaged during freeze drying. In such cases, what you have to do is you have to add protective agents. So solution for this is adding of protective agents. The protective agents such as polyols, okay, polysaccharides, disaccharides, and monosaccharides, these can be added. So many a times, okay, along when you carry out lyophilization, along with solubilizing your active ingredient, you also, what you do is you also solubilize your other ingredients, excipients, such as example of would be the protective agents. There are other agents which are also been added in the formulation because you want some characteristics from your formulation. Some of the characteristics that you require from your formulation is what the solid is taking. Okay, so you want the formulations to be in the form of solid residue when it has been packed, and you want it in the form of solution, okay, when it is reconstituted. Also, when a cake form is there, solid residue form is there, you require some specific characteristic of this solid residue also. So what are the characteristics that are required of this cake? We want the cake to be a good cake. Means what? You want the solid residue to be of uniform color and texture. Okay. You want it to have a good supporting matrix of solid, right? And then lastly, you want it to have a sufficient strength so that the crumbling during the storage of this cake do not happen. Okay, so that are the things that you are requiring from it. Usually whenever you are preparing solutions, okay, they are intended to be freeze dried, and hence aqueous solvents are usually used for this process. Now you will be saying that as you are using aqueous solvent, so there are chances of hydrolysis. Okay, the chances of hydrolysis are very less, as the solution form is for just for a brief period of time. You're taking the dry powders, you're taking the active ingredient, you're converting in the form of solution, and this solution is converted in the form of dry powders, and this process happens within say 1 or 2 hours, isn't it? Or maybe 6 hours. And as this process is very fast, so the active solutions, they come in contact with your active ingredient for a very short period of time. Hence, they are stable in nature. So the stability problem is not there, even if you are preparing a aqueous solution of your active ingredient. But these are some of the, as I told you, these are some of the characteristics that are required. Hence, you are also going to add some other substances along with your active ingredient. So which are the substances that are added to your formulation, okay, when you are lyophilizing the product? The substances, just for example, monobasic or dibasic sodium phosphate can be added. This monobasic or dibasic sodium phosphate, they provide uniform crystal size, they perform uniform color, texture, and physical strength, and it also provides rapid reconstitution. So these all characteristics are provided by your monobasic or dibasic sodium phosphate. So that's why you add sodium phosphate when you're carrying out lyophilization. The other ingredient that you add to your formulation is your sodium chloride. Now, sodium chloride is often used, but when it is used alone without any other ingredient, then usually it forms a cake which tends to shrink. Okay, and the cake appears to be crusty and crumbly in nature. Okay. The next thing that you have to remember is whenever you are adding additives, then these additives should not be volatile in nature. Okay. Therefore, antibacterial agents which are volatile in nature, for example, phenol, chlorobutanol, benzyl alcohol, these are basically not being used because they get, when you're carrying out the sublimation process, okay, there are chances that these products may get volatilized. Okay, so these are the different ingredients that I use for lyophilization.